furious world leaders are sticking the dagger in Donald Trump and twisting it. They are not holding back their condemnation of Donald Trump and his despicable regime, and the fact that Donald Trump has lifted sanctions off of Russian oil, that the Trump regime just lifted sanctions off of Iranian oil, that the Trump regime continues to attack NATO and calls NATO a paper tiger and a bunch of cowards, and world leaders are saying enough. We think you are despicable, Donald. You are on your own. Germany's Chancellor Friedrich Merz said the following about democracy generally, and this was directed at Donald Trump and his regime and the American people. In a dictatorship, everything happens quickly, most of it wrong. In a democracy, things sometimes take longer. There has to be debate. There has to be struggle. And where the media are free, it will be reported. Germany lecturing the United States on democracy. German Chancellor Merz said the following about Trump. He's not exactly on very good terms with me at this moment. How about Chancellor Merz on MAGA in general? The MAGA movement is not our movement. What they are doing with culture and media, how they deal with each other, it is not our understanding of a democracy. We have a very different understanding. Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron posted the following message, because in France, they are still having a tough stance on Russia, and all the rest of the G7 aren't relenting in their sanctions against Russian oil. It is Donald Trump and his pathetic regime here in the United States that's allowing Russia to sell its oil into the world. And now Iran. And Iran, for the first time since the 1990s, can sell its oil to the United States while we're at war with Iran? What the hell is this Trump regime doing? Macron writes the following. We remain resolute in France. This morning in the Mediterranean, the French Navy intercepted and boarded another vessel shadow fleet, the Dana. The war involving Iran will not deflect France from its support for Ukraine, where Russia's war of aggression continues unabated. These vessels, which evade international sanctions and violate the law of the sea, are profiteers of war. They line their pockets while helping finance Russia's war effort. We will not allow it. Now, Ukrainian instructors and inspectors have been in the Middle East working with Arab nations to help them reinforce their ability to shoot down the Iranian Shahed drones and ballistic missiles. And what was exposed was a massive American fraud. So what the United States was doing was giving these very expensive THAAD and Patriot systems, selling it at top dollar to these Mideast nations and telling them that if you wanted to strike down these Shahed drones, you got to be using a lot of the missiles that go in these THAAD and Patriot systems. The thing is, the interceptors are like $3 to $5 million per interceptor. And so what the Ukrainians said is, wait a minute. So you're telling me these Arab nations are using at sometimes 8 interceptors to shoot down one Shahed drone? So one Shahed drone, $20,000 to $30,000 for one Shahed drone. One of these interceptors in the THAAD or Patriots, $3 to $5 million. So you're shooting $40 million worth of weapons to try to knock down one $20,000 drone. And how do we know some of these drones may be dummy drones, right? Don't you think Iran may be sending just some fake drones that don't actually have any significant capabilities of causing damage just to draw out the munitions from the United States as given to these Arab nations? So it's like the United States was running this whole Ponzi scheme, telling these Arab nations, this is how you do it. When in fact, here's the deal. Ukraine has developed its own interceptor systems and its own satellite systems to shoot down these Shahed drones that are incredibly cheap. You basically use interceptor drones on the Shahid drones, and the interceptor drones track the Shahids and they crash into them basically and blow it up. That's one of them. There's also elaborate webs of netting and other things that you do. We've done a whole movie here at the MeidasTouch Network called The Drone Hunters of Kherson, by the way. You should watch it, where we go over all of this. We were on the front lines in Kherson with the drone hunters in Ukraine. Ken Harba, veteran, he was there on behalf of the MeidasTouch, quite literally the front lines in Kherson, shooting down drones. Meidas Studios was there. Go and check that out, because we wanted to show you what's really going on in this war. And Ken risked his life, and our whole staff risked their lives to be there. They did. It's really courageous journalism that they did. I'm grateful for their work. I was here in the United States while they were there, and I was just so impressed with the work that they've done. Real journalism right there. So here's what went down. Ukrainian instructors sent to assist in the Middle East were shocked by how the United States interceptors were going after these targets, according to the Times. And so there would be like 8 Patriot missiles and a single Shahid drone. I don't understand what this is what the Ukrainian officials said. I don't understand what they were doing, what they were watching for 4 years while we've been at war. Meanwhile, President Zelensky posted the following message. As early as a year ago, Zelensky says, we proposed a drone deal to the United States of America because it is our key partner. The agreement is not only about interceptor drones. First and foremost, it includes naval drones and long-range drones that have been proven in the war. It also includes a package for the exchange of critical knowledge, training, and so on. I am very interested in signing this agreement with our close partner, the United States of America. So when President Trump is ready, I will definitely be ready. Our negotiating team will discuss the issue at the meeting in the United States. Okay. Do you see the hubris of Donald Trump? Just take a look at Donald Trump's actions, right? So we know for a fact that Putin is working with Iran to kill Americans and target American interests. And Iran provided Russia with Shahid drones. Russia is helping Iran with parts to build more Shahid drones and helping provide Iran with the targets and coordinates to hit American interests. And so they're working closely. It was reported yesterday as well that Putin, through Kirill Dmitriev and Yushakov, told Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner that if Trump stopped helping the Ukrainians, then Russia would stop helping Iran against Americans. Dmitriev denied it, but they lie about everything. The Trump regime lies about everything. And we know Iran is being helped by Russia. Iran says it, right? Foreign Minister Aragchi is out there saying that that's where they're getting their help from. So Donald Trump lifts the sanctions against Russian oil. Trump lifts the sanctions against Iranian oil, allows Iranian oil to be sold now in the United States, Russian oil as well. Donald Trump attacks NATO, calls NATO a paper tiger, and he's still refusing to get the necessary training and assets from Zelensky because Trump hates Zelensky, calls him P.T. Barnum, says Zelensky's the reason why we can't have peace in Ukraine when Russia was the one who invaded. And Zelensky's like, we've got the interceptors. We've got the unmanned sea vessels. We've got the FPV drones, the first-person drones. We have all of that. And we have the know-how and the intelligence. We want to help you. We tried to do this a year ago, but you're refusing to listen to us, right? And speaking of refusing to listen, Donald Trump is now using the fact that the war is going on in Iran to say we don't need to do any more peace discussions between Zelensky and Russia, or these trilateral discussions, U.S., Russia, and Ukraine. And so there's no kind of meetings that are set to have peace negotiations. By the way, Russia feels emboldened. They've made a ton of money as well now off this war in Iran. They're one of the main beneficiaries. So like, why would they feel emboldened? They felt emboldened before. And Russia never, ever once made any offer about a ceasefire. Ukraine has consistently agreed to ceasefires. In fact, Ukraine has agreed to hold new elections and to hold referendums on giving up major parts of eastern Ukraine to Russia, provided that there's a ceasefire and Ukrainians get to vote on it in an actual free and fair election. Because Zelensky knows that if there's a free and fair election, Russia's not going to win that. Ukrainians are going to want to stay Ukraine. But anyway, Zelensky's always agreed to ceasefire. Putin's never agreed to ceasefire.
All right, let me tell you something real quick. When your business starts growing fast, it's exciting, but fulfillment, that's where things could fall apart. When your company's growing fast, order fulfillment can make or break your success. ShipStation's intelligence-driven platform brings order management, rate shopping, inventory and returns, warehouse systems, and comprehensive analytics all in one place, saving customers 15 hours per week on fulfillment. And here's why I love it. ShipStation puts everything you need to manage getting orders to customers in one place. You can connect to over 200 sales channels. Instead of juggling 5 to 7 different tools, it's just one. It also compares rates across USPS, UPS, and FedEx, including your own discounted rates if you've got them, so you're always getting the best option, with discounts up to 90% off. Already negotiated great rates? Perfect. Bring them with you. ShipStation layers on automation and intelligent features to make it even better. You can set up automation so it picks the best carrier, finds the best rate, prints labels in bulk, and sends tracking updates. Done. And this is huge. Sharing tracking details cuts customer service inquiries by 12%. Returns management shows you what's coming back and why. And the analytics helps you see where you're saving and where to optimize. Over 1 million businesses have trusted ShipStation, including our show. And I'll be honest, before ShipStation, I spent hours tracking orders and following up with customers. Now I've cut that time in half and I can actually focus on scaling. Try ShipStation free for 60 days with full access to all features. No credit card needed. Go to ShipStation.com and use code Meidas for 60 days for free. 60 days gives you plenty of time to see exactly how much time and money you're saving on every shipment. That's ShipStation.com, code Meidas, MEIDAS. ShipStation.com, code Meidas.
Here's what Zelensky wrote yesterday as well. At the planned Ukraine-U.S. bilateral meeting in the United States, a full range of issues will be addressed. First, preparation for a trilateral meeting with the Russian side. Ukraine wants clear dates for such a meeting, or at least approximate ones. Everyone understands that the war in the Middle East is affecting the postponement of this date, but nevertheless, greater clarity is needed. Second, dialogue with the American side must continue in close coordination because the easing of sanctions by the United States on Russian energy creates risks. This increases Russia's revenue and accordingly Russian capabilities on the front line. This is dangerous. Therefore, from this perspective as well, the meeting in the United States is important. Third, work on bilateral documents relating to ending the war, future security guarantees, and the reconstruction of Ukraine. This work is ongoing, and our negotiating team will be clarifying specific issues. The team's main tasks are, first and foremost, clear parameters for continuing the trilateral talks. Second, the status of the documents. Third, the PURL, the Pearl Initiative, through which we have to procure missiles for the Patriots. It is important to discuss with the American side the continuation of this program. And fourth, the discussion of our bilateral relations and this drone deal. Now, this is getting underreported, but it needs to be reported. Ukraine has launched very successful counteroffensives this past winter, and now heading into the spring, they keep on doing it. We know that there have been dark days for the Russians on the front lines. Jay and Kiev going through some of these military blogger posts that are out there. And one of Russia's most popular military bloggers say they're getting slaughtered at the front. And that if Putin announces mobilization, they still won't be able to move forward, but will sustain losses 8 times greater. Almost 5,000 Russian casualties have occurred in the past 3 days. right? As Jane Keefe says, there's been about 5,000 Russian casualties in the last 3 days, while the entire Trump regime is reciting verbatim Kremlin narratives and taking sanctions off of Russia, taking sanctions off Belarus, taking sanctions off of Iran in order to help Russia. Russia's the beneficiary of this all, while Donald Trump attacks and attacks and attacks NATO and Zelensky. More international news to report. And I did this, I went over some of this in the earlier video. We know that based on Iran's attacks in Baghdad and Iraq, Iraq has declared a force majeure on all of its oil exports, meaning it's not going to be able to deliver anything, and it wants out of its contracts. Kuwait, their facilities have been under attack as well. We talked about Qatar, their northern energy facilities were under attack. Haifa in Israel under attack, significant destruction. Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Iran has given a warning to the United Arab Emirates. Abu Dhabi, Dubai, other areas, tourist areas will come under attack as a result of them lending their HIMARS to, or allowing the U.S. to use their area for HIMARS. Some other news that is not getting as reported as much. Cuba received an oil shipment from Russia. They're also being supported by China, also being, also Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum considering humanitarian aid as well. Cuba is refusing a request by the U.S. Embassy in Havana to import diesel fuel for its generators, calling the ask shameless, given that the Trump regime's fuel blockade on the island, according to diplomatic cables reviewed by the Post. That's an important thing to note. Donald Trump yesterday said NATO is a paper tiger. Donald Trump, the news was reported yesterday that Trump's DOJ is now criminally investigating Colombia's president, Gustavo Petro, as Donald Trump wants to topple the Colombian regime, topple the Cuban regime. He went after, obviously, Venezuela. He has Delcy Rodriguez there. I mean, Donald Trump is a complete and absolute madman lunatic, and you see how he is behaving. And this also comes at the same time that we're aware of Donald Trump sending significant troops, 82nd Airborne Division, deployed, or portions of it, as well as Marine Expeditionary Units, not just those on the USS Tripoli in Japan, but on the USS Boxer and others coming from San Diego. So kind of a complete and utter mess. Global oil markets, the biggest shock in the history of the world, shattered. The stock market in the United States crashing. These are grim days, but you see how world leaders are standing up to Donald Trump and his despicable regime. Let me know what you think. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 7 million subscribers. Thanks for watching.
New Meidas merch. Head to store.MeidasTouch.com today and get yourself the best pro-democracy gear and show your support. That's store.MeidasTouch.com.